Hello everyone, so I'm coming up with another video today. Today we're gonna watch a match between Melissa Detora and Jerry Thompson from round 12 from Pro Tour Gatecrash 7 years ago. Actually, one of my followers told me that this match was great and I should cover it, so that's why I chose it. So let's look at the deck list. The decks are actually very similar. It's a bunt control or like bunt mid-range, I guess, versus Jeskai mid-range, piloted by Jerry. And the main difference is that Melissa is playing Traktask. I mean, she also has like other green cards, but mainly she has Traktask, which I think gives her an edge. Like when you look at the list, it's like they both play like an Ogre, uh, Sphinx's Revelation, and Restoration Angel and Snapcaster Mage package. But Jerry has like Reckoner and Burn spells, whereas Melissa has like a Farseek, Center Healer, and Traktask. And like all things considered, like they're basically playing the same deck, but Traktask is a 2-for-1, so I think Melissa has an edge. Also, like game one, the fact that she has a Farseek is also a pretty big advantage, I think, because when you look at the lists, Jerry actually plays only a few counter spells in the main. He has a Rewind and a Counterflux. I guess he can like find them with Ogre or like Snapcaster, mage them back, so it's actually like more than two, but it's still not that many. Uh, so like if you assume that your revelations are gonna resolve, obviously the player with more mana has an advantage. But it's still a control mirror. Anything can happen. So I think it was a very interesting game. A lot of like decisions were made. I didn't agree with a lot of things. So yeah, I just wanted to look into it. Like the matchup and the match was like it wasn't like one of these games when just like one player destroys the other one. Like there are some games in Magic that like last for a long time, but you basically know the entire time which player is going to win. But that wasn't really the case for this game, so I just wanted to cover it. One more thing going for Jerry's deck list, or like something that I should mention, is that he plays one Harvest Spider, and that actually combos really well with Boros Reckoner. You can like Toadscar yourself a bunch of times, and then just like deal 20 to your Reckoner and kill your opponent. But that doesn't really work in this matchup because Melissa has like infinite life gain. She has like 4 Traktask, Healer, Revelation, and she can also like blink those creatures with like on Restoration Angel, or even gain life with Azorius Charm. So it's like really hard to combo kill. So yeah, let's get into the matches. Oh, one more thing I wanted to say is that the fact that Jerry doesn't play Farseek and Melissa does means that maybe in post-board games, Jerry can like focus on countering Revelation, and then Melissa like is more likely to flood out. Like Jerry has more gas in his deck, so like these Farseek might become an liability. But as I already said, Jerry doesn't actually play that many permission spells main, so that's different for game one. So yeah, let's get into the game. For those who don't know, Melissa is probably the best female Magic player, or at least at this point she was. I think she's the only woman who defeated the Pro Tour. So Melissa has a turn to Farseek. It's great. The mana used to be so good back then. Like you had duels and also those fast lands, and the fact that you also get to play Farseek means that she's actually splashing for Kessig Wolfram. It sounds super weird to splash for a land that's colorless. Like you would just think that that just makes your mana horrible. But the mana was like so good during that time that it was possible. And in these kind of matchups, like Kessig Wolfram is just insane. They can't really race you because you have so much life gain. So they're just like trying to blank your creatures with like Restoration Angels and stuff. But it's really hard to do with Kessig Wolfram in play. So Jerry hit a Rewind with his Ogre, which is like the one of the cards that he's looking for. He really needs like at least one counter to be able to fight the big spells from Melissa. So Jerry had a decision between passing with Searing Spear and maybe like kill a potential Traktask or something, or just kill the center immediately and attack. I think the reason why he did it on his turn was because if Melissa passes, then he's in a kind of an awkward of a spot because if he just like spears end of turn, she can blink her healer with Restoration Angel, so he decided to do it on his turn. So yeah, here you can see the power of Traktas. It's just like so hard to deal with. It's almost always a 2-for-1. Like it's just always a 2-for-1. So like I just think this band deck was better than the Jeskai deck. Basically, the Jeskai I guess is slightly better against aggro, but not by that much. And like the green deck seems to be better positioned in like these mid-range mirrors. So I just think the deck was slightly better. But yeah. Here you see the combination of Restoration Angel plus Augur, Jerry blocked, and Restoration Angel. Like, I'm sure that Jerry knows that Melissa can blink her Traktas now with Restoration Angel, and that's super bad for him. And like Jerry has a rewind, but especially given the fact that he doesn't have mana, like what is he going to do? Just like not play anything? So I think it makes sense for him to play the Restoration Angel there, even though the kind of a disaster scenario happened. Melissa does have the Restoration Angel. When you're short on mana, you should just like always, even when something bad can happen to you or like the exchange isn't great, you should almost always try to use all of your mana, because otherwise you're just gonna lose like too much tempo, and you're gonna die with cards in your hand. So it makes sense that he played it. Yeah, so Jerry went for Snapcaster on this Traktas because now he actually blanked Melissa's board. Melissa doesn't actually play like that many removal spells. She has like Azorius Charm, which isn't that bad for Jerry if she bounces the Restoration Angel and like one Detention Sphere. So it actually looked like Jerry stabilized there, but Melissa drew the key card, Kissing Wolfram. And I really want to talk about this turn. Like until this point, I think all of the plays were kind of forced, and it makes sense that players did what they did. But this turn, Melissa drew the Kissing Wolfram, and she was like, "Oh wow, this is great! Like, I drew the best card. Let's just attack with everything." But let's actually like look at it, right? So Melissa decides to attack with everything, and Jerry blocks the 3/4 on the 3/3, and he double blocks this. So like Melissa is kind of forced to pump this 3/3 now, because otherwise it's just gonna die. And even if she does that, like it's trade here. She traded a 3/3 for like either one of these. I'm not sure which one she put first, but that's like a really good trade. And you deal 3. That like isn't very good. It's basically a time walk for Jerry, right? Like especially with like Melissa has a Think Fight and Revelation in her hand. So it would like be pretty good for her to like maybe play Think Fight. If she draws a land, then play Healer. If she doesn't, she can flashback the Think Fight and make sure that she hits a land drop, and she can play a huge Revelation next turn. Instead, she just like went for attack that like didn't really accomplish anything. And I don't know, she lost a lot of tempo. Like I think that if she played this turn right, the game wouldn't be close at all. But because she made a mistake, at least I think it actually starts to become pretty close. I think the right play was to just attack with the Restoration Angel. Jerry can't really block because she can just pump it and eats his Restoration Angel for free. So you deal 3. That's basically the same outcome as she did with the attack. I mean, yeah, she killed the Angel for a 3/3, but it cost her entire turn. I just don't think that's worth it. Normally, you would think that this Restoration Angel is safe, but during that time, there were actually like Museum Mortars and stuff. So Jerry is kind of in an awkward spot. He's at 14 with Restoration Angel and Kissing Wolfram in play, and he's thinking about what to do. I I think that just like holding a mana with rewind, it's not that great when Melissa has like access to instant cards like Revelation, Restoration, Angels, and stuff, and she's already pressuring you on the board. So playing this Ogre kind of makes sense. And Jerry hits the perfect card, Museum Mortars. Like there is a chance that it was better to like play Think Twice instead of Mortars, but it definitely worked out for him. So I'm not gonna say anything. Holding out the Think Twice means that if Melissa plays something like Drug Tusk, you can still rewind. So maybe, I think it was a close decision, but it worked out really well for Jerry. So, I'm just gonna assume that it was the right play. I'm not really confident. So Melissa drew a land, which is very fortunate for her because it means that she's gonna draw an extra card with this Revelation. Like I really think that she should have just like double think twice last turn, or at least like draw once, and depending on whether she draws the land, either flashback or play healer. But just like losing an extra card from Revelation for no reason, just to like kill a 3/4 and deal like a couple more damage was just like super wrong. Now it just seems like that Melissa is super far ahead. She has more lands, more cards. It looks pretty bad for Jerry. Fortunately, Jerry drew a land, so like he's not completely out of it yet. And like the Melissa's deck doesn't actually play like that many action cards. Like she has plenty, but not infinite. So it's like possible that even though she drew like so many extra cards, she can like kind of flood out. And maybe if Jerry is can like counter the second Revelation that she draws, maybe he still has a chance. Because his deck just like has more action cards, like cards that actually do something. He has like 4 more extra spells over those far 6. Melissa hit a Dissipate, which is really good, obviously. So what did she do this turn again? Okay, she played a healer and Ogre. I guess that's fine. I'm just like thinking whether maybe it was better to play a Drug Tusk. Just like the rewind isn't going anywhere, and like you use more mana, it makes it more likely that you resolve the next Drug Tusk, and like it kind of frees up your future Revelation or whatever. Like I just think that players are used from like the actual control mirrors or whatever, that you should like really save your cards, but they don't really adjust to like these different kind of control mirrors where people actually have only few counters. And I'm not saying this was necessarily the case. Like I think it's pretty close between like playing those two creatures and playing Drug Tusk plus like an Ogre or whatever. Like I'm not actually sure what's better. I'm just saying that like in general, in these like mid-range kind of matchups, like jamming is usually the right play. It doesn't like look good to just like tap 5 mana into like encounter that you know about, but like it's not really going anywhere. You just want to get rid of it, and you're like resolve your next big spell instead of just like trying to play low impact spells. And then like eventually you will be kind of forced to play that big card anyway, and they still have the counter. But if you played it before, like the turn that you play the big card obviously doesn't look that good, but all of your following turns are gonna be way more impactful than the way you're doing it. As I said, I'm not saying that she made a mistake. I'm just talking in general. That jamming is sometimes correct. Melissa could have dissipated this Restoration Angel, but she decided not to. I'm not sure, but as I said, they don't really play that many counters, so it makes sense to keep it for Revelation. She's not that worried about this 3/4. She has like so much life and like Drug Tusks in her hand, so it's fine. Melissa paused for a slight moment with this think fights because maybe Jerry can respond with a revelation, but he didn't even think about taking. I guess he could have think about it, but he just like didn't take two. She didn't saw the revelation with Augur. She knows about the rewind. It's not like super likely that he has it, and using the mana is fine, so it makes sense, I think. Okay, so Melissa had a decision between just like attacking and using Wolf Run, and then like flashback a think twice and still keep up dissipate, or just play a truck tusk. Uh, because of what I said earlier, I agree with playing this truck tusk, because if you don't, Jerry still has the rewind, and it like can make your potential future turns super awkward. You're just gonna be stuck with like three really powerful cards in your hand, and Jerry still has the rewind, and he just like gains a huge tempo during that turn. Like now she's like kind of stable. She's not really worried about her life total, so I think it's fine to just like kind of duress Jerry here and maybe free up her potential revelation or another track task or like whatever for the following turns. So Jerry rewinded the track task, which I think is fine, but he had a thought score in his hand. I don't really know why would you not thought score before that. I don't really think it would change anything, but it would give you more info. Like maybe if he hit like a really powerful card or like a removal spell, he might not really care about this track task as much. I mean, he obviously cares about it, but if he drew something powerful that would outpower this drug task, maybe it would be better for him to keep the rewind for like a revelation or something. So I just don't really understand why you wouldn't dot score first. So he drew it a think twice, and now I guess he's thinking about whether he should dot score himself or Melissa. So like in general, and like it was the reason why you played the Toadscar in your deck. I mean, I guess there are like more reasons why this deck played a Toadscar. So like you play Snapcaster, you can mill Think twice, but most importantly, you play a Harvest Spire. So not only you put cards in your deck for the Harvest Spire, you can also mill it, and like down the path when you draw a Snapcaster, you can just flashback it back. And also you can hit it with an Augur, so it just like gives you a critical amount of spells in your deck. So I think it makes sense that the deck played it. But in this matchup, Jory actually very interestingly chooses to Totscar Melissa, despite the fact that she can hit a Think Vice of her own. But Jory is basically significant. Well, I can't say that word in English. But he's basically saying that he can see this game going so long that it will actually come down to decking. The game will not end up playing out that way, but I actually remember playing during this time, and a lot of the games uh, came down to that. Like Melissa gained so much life that it's like gonna be really hard for Jerry to actually kill her, but because he plays Toadscars, he can maybe mill her. Like it makes those like huge turns with Revelation for 8 or whatever kind of scary when you can go like Toadscar, Toadscar, Snapcaster, Toadscar, Snapcaster, Toadscar, and like suddenly, especially if you're lucky and you hit some of the action cards, you can get into trouble. So Cherry drew Revelation, which is what he wants to see. That can actually get him back into this game. Melissa obviously didn't flashback Think Face enough turn because she wants to keep up the dissipate. So how much mana she has? Okay, let's see. Yeah. So you might be like thinking why she's not attacking with these creatures, but like even though if she can force those creatures through, it actually doesn't really matter that much. Like it's fine when you like trade your small creature for like a slightly bigger creature, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much. You don't play both players don't really play like that many creatures, and like all of these creatures are eventually going to be a huge threat that Jerry needs to block. So like making that trade, like you can basically always do it, and also maybe in the future turns it's for more damage when you like have all of these lands with and like nothing to do with a Wolf Run. And also by doing that, you wouldn't play any of your cards. So I think it's better to just like first play the cards from her hand and attack with the Wolf Run later. Not to mention that if Jerry has like a Searing Spear or something, she just time book herself. So I think it makes sense. Okay, I think this turn is actually pretty interesting. So Jerry had two Azorius Charms and a Revelation in his hand. So why he didn't do anything? I agree with not cycling these Azorius Charms. Like as I said with, for example, the Farseek, the game can come down to the fact that one of the players just like run out of the gas because they're actually not like infinite cards that like are impactful. And when you cycle a charm, you draw a card, but in Magic you play lands, right? So like you actually exchange like an action card for like a half a card basically on average. Like it just tends to flat. Like you would think that he's behind, so he wants to dig for something, but that's just like kind of a wrong way to look at it. It's true that he's behind, but he's not solving that issue with drawing a card, and maybe just like putting creature on the top, especially with his Wolf Run in play, might be more impactful than just like drawing something and hope to draw something great immediately. It's true that he knows about the Dissipate and he will want to dig for like another Revelation Snapcaster, which makes it kind of close, but I can definitely see why you wouldn't. But I disagree with not playing the Revelation. So like Jerry knows about the Dissipate, right? So you're probably thinking, well, obviously he doesn't want to play Revelation into the Dissipate. That doesn't really make sense, which I think would be a good argument in general. But as I said already before, this is not the regular control mirror where you're just like passing with lands and like eventually you can play like a Revelation with your own counter backup or whatever. Jerry already played his Rewind and he has only, let's look at the deck list. He has only one Counterflex in his deck, right? So first of all, he needs to find it to be able to fight back, and even if he does, it's not like that great because the Revelation is kind of expensive and like going Revelation plus Counterflex is kind of hard. And by not playing it, like now if he draws like a Snapcaster or Revelation, he basically time block himself, right? He has to if he draws that, he just like Revelations, Melissa dissipates, and then he plays the next Revelation. It's basically going to be the same thing at any point. Like it's not like Melissa is going to use Dissipate for anything else besides Revelation. So that exchange is always going to happen unless Jerry obviously draws the one Counterflex. If that's the case, by you're not playing it, you're just basically time blocking yourself in the future, right? Like waiting for drawing the second Revelation doesn't like really make sense. The scenario is going to be the same. You just play the Revelation, it gets dissipated, and then you play the other one. Why don't you just like make that exchange now, and if you draw the second action card, you can play it turn earlier or like resolve it turn earlier. Like it just doesn't really make sense to me. As I said, I'm also not sure about not cycling these charms, but I think it's fine. So once again, Melissa didn't think twice because of potential Revelation. So now she showed herself, indicating that she wants to attack and use Wolf Run. not sure. It might have been better to draw with a Finkwise first. Like I'm not sure how much it matters that she deals like extra damage with the Wolfram compared to just like getting potential tempo by like drawing an action card and playing it earlier. Hard for me to say. I didn't play this matchup enough to like have a confidence for that, but I would definitely at least consider flashbacking that thing twice before doing anything. But like you can basically, I don't really understand these attacks. Like you make a fine trade. Like you will always like to trade a center healer for restoration angel, all things considered. But you can kind of do that exchange at any point. But if you do it later, you can also deal like 7 damage by doing that. Like this way, you just like kind of trade creatures, and then Jerry can kill all of your creatures, and then suddenly like your Wolfram doesn't do anything. It's not like he's like pressuring your life total or whatever, and you will hoarding dissipate for his revelation. So what you can do is to just like maybe attack only with a truck tusk or whatever, or maybe not attack at all. Flashback think twice, maybe play like something else, and then just like not make these attacks with 2 creatures when he gets to double block and you pump 1 and maybe deal 2 damage, but just attack with 1 and pump it for like 8 or whatever. You go to 5, an extra attack with like one guy as well, attack you for 5, and just like do that 3 times in a row, and then Jerry's just gonna die, right? Like her Wolfram basically doesn't really do anything here. It just makes her free trade for the 3/4, but like whatever. So Jerry saves his Restoration Angel by killing the healer. Doesn't really matter that much. But yeah, I just don't really like that play very much. Like if you weren't worried about all of your creatures dying, maybe it would be fine. But I think that's like an actual concern. And with that being said, you really want to maximize the damage. You have like so many lands and so much life that you're not worried about being under any kind of pressure. You just want to maximize the potential damage with Wolfram with every single creature you have, I think. Why is she in the rush with this Wolfram? I don't know. I think it was better to just like, draw with your cards, draw into more action sooner, and then when you have when you have like 12 lands in play, and you're out of the cast, just like use your 1 freeze and 3 freeze to like deal 8 damage or something. That was her biggest advantage in this game, right? Like the Wolfram with small creatures, but she kind of lost it by now. So here you can see what I was talking about. Jerry threw the Snapcaster, and if he used his Revelation earlier, he would be able to like play Snapcaster and draw 5 cards, putting him like pretty far ahead, but he didn't. So now he has to do a turn later if he wants to. So and yeah, Melissa only has a dissipate. She has that thing twice in her graveyard that she wasn't flashbacking for a while. I don't think she forgot about it. She just valued using Wolfram more. So yeah, she's going to use it now. She draws an Augur, which is potentially a huge draw because not only it's a creature for Wolfram, but it can also hit a Revelation. So that was actually an insane draw for her. Jerry obviously knows that she can hit a Revelation with it, so he's like thinking about maybe countering it. But it doesn't sound very good because it can potentially miss, and if it does, you just like used one of your insane cards to counter 1 free. Oh, is he doing that? I guess the 1-3 is a pretty big threat. But is that really... What is going on here? So Melissa drew in response, but it's not like she's playing that many counters. I don't really... Okay. So why would you... Maybe if she draws her second Dissipate, then she wants to dissipate the Snapcaster and still have a Dissipate for Revelation. But given that she didn't play a land, if she dissipates this, even if she hits the second Dissipate, she opens herself to Cherry having a Revelation resolve here. So I just don't really understand this drawing in response. But maybe it's a free roll, so whatever. I don't really, by the way, I don't really understand this, like, Snapcaster try to counter this Ogre. I know that it can hit a Revelation potentially and it's a huge threat with his Wolf Run, but the Snapcaster means Revelation, right? So, like, I would just hope that she misses. If she doesn't, well, oh well, then, like, Revelation, and then on my turn, Snapcaster Revelation, that's, like, her biggest shot, right? Like, I don't think that, like, countering something that can be only a 1-3 instead of drawing 5 cards makes really sense. And yeah, like, going back to that turn, remember, if Jerry already used his Revelation, he would be able to play Snapcaster here and draw 5 cards and untap, and, you know, maybe draw, like, another counter to, like, take care of Melissa's Revelation, or he can draw a Restoration Angel and blink the Snapcaster and counter it with Rewind or something, but he didn't, so now he's, like, 1 turn behind. Which is going to end up being very super important because Melissa drew the Revelation that she gets to resolve. So, like, not only that he didn't resolve his Revelation, he also didn't force Melissa to use her Dissipate by playing the Revelation that turn. So, like, yeah, I think it was pretty bad. Like, just when you think about the outcome, like, if he, I know he didn't have a revelation in his graveyard, but by playing the Revelation, you basically make the Snapcaster into a second Revelation, right? Melissa would definitely counter one of those Revelations, but she decided to not counter the Snapcaster and Rewind. So obviously that was a way more low impact play than playing a Revelation into Snapcaster Revelation, because, like, one of those plays forces to dissipate, but this didn't. So that kind of, like, shows you that the play was wrong, right? So Jerry drew an Ogre into Revelation. So now he has 2 Revelations. So even though he might have made some mistakes, he now has the opportunity to, you know, use one of these Revelations as a duress and then resolve another one. But Melissa has her own Revelation, so that's not really gonna work out that well for him, as it could have. So yeah, here you can see the advantage with Farseek in game 1, when just, like, Cherry's Revelations draw less cards than Melissa's. That being said, you also, like, draw, even though you draw more, you still can draw those Farseeks, so, like, maybe it kind of evens out, I guess. But yeah, when both players are drawing infinite, the player with Castle Wolf Run and infinite life should be advantaged, obviously. When I was watching this game, I just thought that Jerry's plan is obviously going to be to mill Melissa. He does have a Harvest Sparrow in his deck, but like, dealing, like, 45 damage or whatever just seems, like, so hard. Even with, like, Thoughtscars and stuff. So I thought that his plan was to just, like, mill her with Thoughtscars and just try to, like, survive or something. So yeah, Melissa actually could have like resolved a huge revelation here, but I think she's aware of the fact that she can get milled. So instead, she's just like trying to get as many lands in her into play and just like play creatures and try to kill Jerry with Wolf Run. I'm not like 100%, like I don't really know how many cards she had in his deck, and you know, maybe if she had like one less creature, it would be kind of sketchy to do that because Jerry just drew 7 and it's super likely that he can kill these 2 creatures. So that means that like you will be forced to use that revelation to get more gas anyway, and just like try to hit like a Truck Tusk and or like, you know, more creatures and try to win. But because she has free, there is a chance that Jerry doesn't have like, you know, way to kill both those Restoration Angels or whatever. And if that's the case, she doesn't really want to take risk of getting milled. So I think it makes sense. Finally, Jerry is starting to draw his Reckoners. He's playing 4, but he just like didn't draw them before. So here he actually Toadscard himself. And I think the reason is because he has a Harvest Spire in his hand, and maybe he's thinking that he can deal enough damage and then win with Harvest Spire. But I just like think that that's super unlikely. He doesn't actually have that many cards in his graveyard. He's also playing only one thing twice, and he already used it. So like, you know, at this point, I would think that my only way to win is to like deck Melissa. And also, even if that's necessarily not your plan, it just like makes her revelation weaker. Like, you can kind of assume that she has a revelation in his deck. Like, not 100%, but it's kind of likely. So this play doesn't really make sense at all when you think about it. By milling 2 cards of your own, you deal 2 extra damage with a Harvest Spire. But Melissa has access to 2 more cards in her deck, so she can draw 2 extra cards with Revelation, right? Like she those 2 cards didn't get milled, which means that she can draw them with Revelation if she wants to, and that gains her 2 more life. So by milling yourself, you're dealing the same amount of damage, but you give Melissa access to 2 more cards. So like it just doesn't make sense. Now Jerry drew the Counterflux. That's super important, obviously. If he had milled Melissa, he wouldn't have drawn the Counterflux this turn, but obviously there's no way to know that, so like that's a bad argument, just saying. So Melissa has a detention sphere in her hand, and she like decides to not play it for this turn and even for like the next turn. I don't really know why. Like, are you really like, obviously Jerry can maybe counter it, or like I guess you target one of the Reckoners and he can like Searing Spirit and he also kills you. But like, do you really care? Like, is your detention sphere going to get better at any point? I guess Jerry can like get you with a Restoration Angel, but I don't know. Like, what else is your detention sphere going to do? I don't know. If it gets countered, that's great for you because that means your next Restoration Angel, which is basically your way to win, is going to resolve. So I guess it's more about like Jerry's Restoration Angel. But even if he has it, like these Reckoners, you're not really worried about them too much, and like the Restoration Angel can always blink this Snapcaster or Ogre. So I just think that's fine. Why wouldn't you do that? So she's pumping for a bunch. Cherry decides to take it. He still doesn't really want to use that Harvest Spire to kill a creature because maybe he's thinking that he can still win with damage. And also, like, the creature is gonna deal more damage in the future, so maybe you wanna like kill it on that turn or something. I don't know. So now Jerry's kind of flooding out. So I also like the fact that Melissa didn't play that Farseek. You know, it just gets a card out of your deck. That's something that you're maybe concerned about. So I think that's fine. I don't really know why she didn't play the second. Let's take a look whether Jerry plays Supreme Verdict, because if he does. Okay, yeah, so yeah, Jerry plays one Supreme Verdict, so she doesn't want to commit the second Angel into that. Like, she knows that Jerry doesn't actually have done removal spells for this, and if Jerry kills it, then you know she can just play another one. But if she plays the second one and it gets Verdict, she can just like die. So it makes sense. Why is she pumping for like these small amounts? I guess this turn it's lethal anyway, so that doesn't matter, but it wasn't the last turn, so I don't know. So now Melissa has a decision whether to counter this Harvest Spider. I think she shouldn't, because she has the another Angel and it has Flash. So like if it didn't have Flash and this dies and she like plays her next creature, then Jerry can like Supreme Verdict, which is uncounterable, and you lose all of your creatures. But your Restoration Angel has Flash, so you can just like do this next turn anyway. But if you counter it, and Jerry has a Revelation, isn't that pretty bad for you? So I don't think she should counter it. I don't actually remember whether she does or not. Okay, she doesn't. I like that. She's still not playing this Sphere. I think that's pretty dangerous, especially in this spot. Like, aren't you like a little bit worried about damage? What if like Jerry has like a removal spell, counter for your Angel or whatever, and then he just like starts attacking you, and then like you draw Truck Tusk in like 2 turns, but you already like took too much damage and you're just gonna like die to like the Harvest Spider or something. Like, I don't know. I just don't like not playing the Sphere. Like, it would be different with the Snapcaster Mage not being in the play, but because it is, like I think the reason why I already said that the reason why she's not doing that is because she's worried about Restoration Angel from Jerry, but that's still going to be great on the Snapcaster, maybe even better. So it just doesn't make sense to me. So Jerry needs to counter this Restoration Angel because otherwise he would just die to it. And now it's like not looking that great for Melissa here, right? I mean, it's still looking really good for her, but you know, both of her Angel died, so like this turn she decides to play the Sphere. Why this turn of all the turns? The fact that she played it this turn actually means that this center healer isn't going to be lethal if she wants to keep up Dissipate. So like had she played it before, she can still attack for lethal here and keep up Dissipate, but she didn't, and now she's stretched on mana. She just realized it now. If that's the case, I think you actually don't want to attack at all. I don't think you want to put your shield down and like die to potential Revelation. So it makes sense that you want to keep up Dissipate, but you definitely want to make sure that this center healer is attacking for lethal. It's your last creature, obviously. I think what happened was that she attacked, Jerry blocked, and then she realized that she doesn't actually have enough to pump and also keep up Dissipate. So it's actually so it, you know, ends up being kind of awkward. Yeah, she's realizing that right now. she could go for it, but you know, if Jerry doesn't have anything, she's still in like a driver's seat. She has a dissipate and a revelation in her hand. But if Jerry does have the revelation, you basically like the game where you were super far ahead. You just basically like concede, or like not concede, but you put yourself in a pretty bad spot. So I think that's like that's like a good ability to have. That like even though you realize that you make a mistake, you still like okay, what's the right play from this point? Oh wow. Okay, she realized that she can't really afford to lose her creatures, so he uses a charm to bounce an ogre and deals a bunch of damage. But bouncing ogre is obviously kinda dangerous. I guess she still has the dissipate, but Jerry misses and that's game over. So yeah, I think this game was super interesting. A lot of interesting decisions. Very long game. I think both players didn't really play optimal, but it's obviously hard. You're playing on a feature match. You're playing for a lot. You have to make decision in certain amount of time and stuff. And I can actually like think about the games from the comfort of my home. So I'm not saying I wouldn't make those mistakes, but just wanted to talk about it. If there is like any match you would like me to cover, let me know. I don't really mind. So yeah, that will be all for today, and see you next time. Bye.